Hello and welcome. Another edition of Thursday's Coach's Corner, Baseball Blue Book. Really doing a deep dive with regard to college baseball. We've had a lot of people, families, student athletes requesting, probably more so than any other question, how does the transfer portal affect NCAA Division II and III, as well as NAIA schools? And today we're going to get a deep dive into NCAA Division III. When I was coaching at Becker College back in the early 2000s, we ran up against Keystone College in Fort Pierce, and I can remember our team being very intimidated because Keystone were just big dudes, big physical dudes that could swing and throw, and they played the game the right way, and that's a tribute to their staff. And joining us today is the assistant coach, one of the assistant coaches, and recruiting coordinator for Keystone College, John McGarvey. John, thank you so much for joining us today, Captain. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, Walter. I'm excited to be here, man. Really excited.
Well, I really wanted to get a deep dive and an understanding because on social media, particularly on Twitter, I get asked all the time, hey, can we hear from some Division III coaches and how the portal is affecting Division III? Does it have any effect? And before we go down that rabbit hole, I want to share with people, we often talk college baseball, and every parent wants to go directly to that, that Division I, that Power Five. And I'm always trying to stress, well, there's lots of other levels of NCAA and there's lots of other divisions. But when it comes to baseball, college caliber baseball, NCAA Division III is probably the most misunderstood animal. Keystone College, 19 straight division championships, conference championships. And we're going to discuss rosters, where they're from, how they're put together, the portal, transfers, all that kind of stuff today. And Johnny, I want you to start us off by telling us a little bit about Keystone College and the coaching staff to start.
So Keystone, when the streak first started, was originally a junior college. So we've always been built around the junior college / transfer type of player, right? Our head coach, Coach Shevchik, is a manager now up at the Cape Cod League. He's been up there for quite some time. He's won a couple championships up there, has seen over, 20 guys, way more. I'm way under what the number is, but has seen draft pick after draft pick after draft pick, right? I mean, the Cape is the mecca of summer baseball. And then right behind him, Coach Ryan Smythe, our head associate, he's also a manager up in the Cape. His first season was last summer. So we have two managers on staff from the Cape Cod League, which is unheard of. I don't think there's a school in the country that can even say that.
Right.
But then to go off of that, we have 10 different guys on our staff that each play a vital role. From our pitching side, Coach Gary Ruby, he did 30 years as a minor league coordinator in the MLB. Amongst 5 different teams. So we have him as our senior pitching advisor. Our head pitching coach, Coach Coach Del Rosso, he's the pitching coach for Brewster with Coach Chev up in the Cape. So you have a guy like that to work with. Me personally, I'm a GM down in the BCBL, Summer League down in Myrtle. But all of us have these wide different backgrounds of connections through summer ball, connections through pro ball. But then also, I mean, you're talking about a staff with over 100 years of experience between all of us that can come together and works really hard for the player. And that's something that we're key on here at Keystone is there's a lot of coaches right now that think the players work for the coach, right? The players work for the program. And with us, that's not the case, right? Like we're a resource for the players. That's what we're trying to be. And I think that's a big thing that has differentiated Keystone through the years. That's why the streak is alive, because when you give that kind of respect to the players obviously give a lot of respect back to you. And it means a little bit more. It becomes more family oriented, I think.
And I think it's really important to not understate the significance as far as the backgrounds of the entire coaching staff at Keystone. And so, a lot of parents are always equating college baseball with this, Division I kind of mindset. But think of the context. Think of how you can promote players to not only potentially higher level schools if you were so inclined, but to scouts. I mean, there's a lot of experience, both from the summer league perspective, but also professionally at Keystone.
Well, so we've had the most draft picks across Division III over the last 20 years. We've had 8 guys drafted, 2 more free agent signings, and over 40 guys into indie ball, right? So the pro connections, when Coach Chev calls someone, they're picking up the phone, right? Like, that's so important in this industry that I don't think a lot of younger people understand, that we're in an industry where you're only as good as the people you know, right? There's 90-mile-an-hour arms all across the country that go unseen because they don't have the coach to refer them to the next step, right? They don't have the coach to vouch for them. They don't have the coach to fight for them, to work for them, to do those kinds of things. And I think that's where Coach Chev has done a great job here. He really promotes his players well. He understands different levels of players too. I think his word it means a lot to a lot of scouts. Like, if Coach Chev is going to put his name on a player and he says he's a pro caliber player, that player is going to be a pro caliber player, right? Like, I think that's important too to understand is his reputation as a head coach, as a field manager. There's not many guys at the D3 level that have that type of reputation at any level, honestly, that have that kind of reputation. So I think that's something that definitely, differentiates us big time is the connections, the networks, the resource behind that, right? Being able to help guys get to the Cape Cod League. We have 2 players right now on our team that played in the Cape last year, because they had Coach Chev and Coach Smythe as a reference, right? We have 2 pitchers on our staff. One's Quinn Holt, who's 93 to 95 miles an hour. Another one, Villar, who's topping out at 92, right? So there's 2 guys that you wouldn't suspect would be at the D3 level, but are here, are helping us and are doing big things that a lot of other guys that might be at a D1 school can't say they've done.
I think it's important for you to kind of share with us here now. We talk about those 2 particular student athletes, but your roster is literally East Coast, West Coast, Canada, Puerto Rico. I mean, it's a really diverse. The school itself is about 15 miles outside of Scranton, Pennsylvania. So when one thinks college baseball, they may not think Scranton, Pennsylvania, but your roster is literally spread out from, it's international in some ways.
We're recruiting at an international level. We have guys on our team from the Dominican Republic. We have guys from Venezuela. Actually, the one guy from Venezuela, while he's been here, got his citizenship here in the United States, which is another cool thing, that we talk about, is like the culture side of it. We have guys coming all the way out from Seattle, big Florida population, pretty much all up and down the East Coast. We're representing a state. And then you also have coaches that are coming from all over too, which I think is useful too, because each area has its own culture of baseball, right? Like, you have multiple different states represented on our coaching staff too. So from the culture, it becomes your home away from home, and you start becoming more diverse. And we're all big believers on a diverse background creates a productive culture, right? Like, there's different things that our guys have been able to overcome in life and share with each other that builds that bond to be a little bit stronger too. So yeah, you're right. Being all over the country, being all over the world is definitely something that's very unique about our program too.
Well, one of the things that parents want to begin to understand, and I think it's time for us to take that dive, the transfer portal. It's not just one Division I cannibalizing Division I. The transfer portal has a direct impact, with regard to all of college baseball. But let's talk about it from the Division III to Division I and Division I down to Division III. Talk to us a little bit about how the portal impacts your recruiting.
Right. So with our streak, our mindset isn't that we're going to reload. All right. So or isn't that we're going to rebuild. We're going to reload instead, right? Because we're trying to get the next year, right? We want to keep that conference streak going. So we are primarily transfers. We get a lot of Division I, Division II JUCO transfers coming into our school. So with that being said, a lot of times high schoolers don't realize that even at the D3 level, they are competing against an already proven person, right? A person that, the average weight across college baseball right now is 195 pounds. So someone who's a little more physical. For some people with the COVID years, that 17, 18-year-old that would be a freshman here is competing against a guy who's 22, 23, 24 years old. Those are full-grown men, right? Like guys that have put on the build, guys that are squatting over 400 pounds, guys that are deadlifting over 400 pounds. I mean, you're going up against a full-grown man. You're competing for a roster spot against a full-grown man. So I think a lot of high schoolers don't realize what all is going into it, right? So we'll get those Division I, Division II, JUCO transfers that come here. But about 18 months ago, we all sat down in a room once the portal really started getting a little bit hectic. We all sat down in a room and we realized that in order to continue the success that we have to change the way that we recruit. And it's a non-traditional way of recruiting. But there's also those guys that are high schoolers that could be going to a Division I school, but are going to be pitcher number 13, 14, 15. Maybe they're not getting much scholarship money from that school. If they come to us, they're in that top 10 mix of guys that are going to get quality impact innings. And what we've been able to tailor our recruiting to is we are now utilizing the networks that we have to help these guys transfer up a level, right? So we have like the guy Quinn Holt, who I was talking about, he's 93 to 95. Chances are he's not coming back next year. And we're okay with that because that's in the best interest of the player, right? Chances are next year, if he doesn't get drafted, and there's a high possibility that he does, if he doesn't get drafted, chances are he's going to be playing at a Power 5 next year. There's another transfer who's coming in mid-year. He's coming in and he has that same goal. He's trying to get to a higher academic Division I school. So he's going to come here for a semester. He's probably going to throw more innings than he would have. And then he's going to be able to transfer up the ranks, right? And that's something that we can do differently. There's no other program, no JUCO in the country, no other program in the country that is able to say they have two managers from the Cape on staff. And when I can tell you right now, when Coach Chev or Coach Smythe, when they call someone, they pick up the phone right away. And that's something that our players are now starting to utilize is the networks that we've been able to create as a coaching staff and the resources and the success. And they're going to come here, throw more innings, throw quality innings, be able to prove that they are that dude that they talk about, get the development they need early on, and then be able to move up the ranks, get to that Division I school that might be their dream school that's probably a little bit out of touch, right? Even if they could walk onto that school, right, and be pitcher number 14, 15, you don't want to sit the bench the whole year, So why not come here as a freshman, sophomore, throw a ton of innings, and then find yourself, after your first 2 years, now you've developed. Now you've gained some miles per hour on your fastball. Now your secondary stuff is landing in the zone where you want to paint it, right? Like those are things that high school guys still need to develop, right? Just hitting that metric of 90, there's tons of people that are hitting 90. So just hitting that metric of 90 or just getting above 90, that doesn't mean that you're the Division I pitcher you think you are. I could rattle off over 6 guys right here that have been over 90. So that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go there, play. Every college coach is going to tell you you're going to be the dude, right? Like that's just a part of this. I think understanding where you stand in their depth chart, that's something that each individual player and family needs to evaluate.
Well, I think you just kind of hit on a topic that I don't think we discuss enough, and that is the transfer that can kind of see, I'm not really in the mix this fall. I'm going to go down to a program maybe like Keystone for maybe a season or two, and then I'll reevaluate and go back up. We talk about the athletes that are transferring 1-to-1, but we very rarely, and I know when we had Eric on from Salve, and we discussed a lot of the Yukon guys going down to Eastern Connecticut, and then you had some guys that showed up from Salve onto Boston College. Now you have that kind of ability, whereas somebody can go to Keystone and maybe their freshman and sophomore year, and maybe their junior or possibly their grad year kind of bounce up with a year of eligibility to a Division I program, as you alluded to, academic wise or for athletic reasons.
100%. And then here's the other side that makes it a little bit more appealing, that a lot of people don't realize is because we are a 4-year institution, our credits are more transferable to other schools than some JUCOs might be. Because we are an NCAA institution, we have more resources available on campus that student athletes can utilize to also help with their player development, right? So with those two things from a player development side, but also from the academic side of having the transferable credits, those are two big things that sometimes players are missing out on when they do go to a JUCO route. And that's not knocking JUCO. It's just the reality of what we are able to do, right? Is we have the resources on campus. There is a ton of funding and resources available. We have a player development center on campus that's actually right now getting an extension added on. We're adding 15 feet onto that to make it a little bit bigger. We're currently building a pavilion on campus that's going to be a double barrel batting cage with mounds in it. Yeah, it's going to be called the Doc Mold Pavilion, which is really cool because that's a legendary athletic director here.
Right.
So we're building that pavilion on campus right now, right next to our field. So we'll have that resource available too. Behind center field is the weight room, and I run all of our strength and conditioning. I have the background in kinesiology and how the human body works. And I mean, I've worked with clients with Parkinson's, cerebral palsy, MS. I've worked with athletes across all different levels, from youth all the way to pro. I've worked with different sports, right? So I've been in a clinical setting. I've done post-rehab work. So you have, one, the strength and conditioning coach who's on staff, but then two, also the weight room right behind center field, which, some programs don't have those resources, right? So we're talking about a Division III that, maybe you're getting recruited to that Power 5, but you're not going to see valuable innings. You're going to have the same resources here that you would have at most of those, maybe mid-majors. Let's compare more to mid-major, right? But you're going to have those same resources. You're going to have credits that are transferable, and then you're going to have the people that can actually call those schools for you and vouch for you and fight for you and recommend you to make that jump, right? So I think what we do is very different, and it's a non-traditional way of recruiting, but and sometimes people think, like, when I say that, it's not real, but it is the reality of the dynamic now. Your bottom 5 pitchers at most schools are leaving, and your top 5 pitchers at the top schools are going to a higher school, right? So it is the reality of what recruiting is anymore, and we had to change and adapt if we wanted to survive and continue being successful, right?
Now,
So,
do you think this is the way the future is going to look? Do you think this is kind of the model going forward? A lot of parents want to know: is this a COVID thing? Is it going to run out of steam in a year?
No, I think the transfer portal is always going to be like this now. I think from the publicity of what the transfer portal brings the NCAA, I don't see them going back to the old way. But then I also, there are incidents where transferring is in the best interest of people. Like, I see all the time on social media that, people aren't loyal, XYZ, this and that. For us, it has nothing to do with loyalty. Even the guys that we're going to help move on, they're going to still thank us. They're still going to be grateful for their experience here. And we're still going to be grateful for their time here and their experience and what they've done as well for the program too. Like, for us, it's not a loyalty thing. For us, it's more along the lines of what's in the best interest of the player. Right. So, I think the transfer portal is going to continue being utilized the way it is. Let's face it, when you hit the college level, for most guys, you have 4 more years left to play.
Right.
So I personally, if you're in a situation where you don't think that you are going to get the time that you want, I personally think sometimes you do have to reevaluate it and look into the portal and explore other options. So for that player that might not be playing a lot, that's thinking about the portal, I would say if you feel that strong about it, do it. Now, if you're on a plan to develop and play the very next season and you're bought in on that plan, that might be the best route for you too, right? I think individually it's going to be different person by person, but I don't see the dynamic of college recruiting right now changing.
Well, you and I had talked a little bit earlier before we jumped on, and we talked about the collegiate summer baseball programs and the value they hold with regard to professional baseball. Scouting now takes on a whole new dynamic. They want to see, a full summer season, and they kind of, collect that data and talk to the parents and the student athletes, not only about, Keystone and the staff going from a summer perspective, but just talk about the value of college baseball and that's the importance of that summer season.
So, and I see this there's two sides of this right now, right? There's people that they go to the lab and they work out all summer, and then there's people that go into the summer circuit, and there's value in both, right? If you want to be a pro guy, you got to start building up your in-game resume, right? So being able to say that you play in the Cape, that's part of building up that resume. Being able to say you play in the NECBL, right? Like that's again another high tier league. Being able to say that you play in these types of leagues, you're building up your resume that is going to take you to the next stepping stone, right? If you're looking up in the Cape, you have every single MLB team there at every single game.
Right.
Right. There's 10 different teams in the Cape. Every single game, you have every MLB team there. Not only do you have every MLB team there at the Cape, but you're having every Power Five school is there in the Cape too because of how the transfer portals work in.
Right.
Which is something people don't realize. And there's crazy money being thrown around too in NIL deals and stuff like $250,000 gets thrown around in the Cape in an NIL deal, which is crazy, right? Like now you're getting paid to play college baseball, but that's the reality and that's the dynamic. And in order to get to leagues like that, you do have to build up your resume. So like the league that I GM for in the BCBL, it's a shortened season, it's a 1 month season, right? Where my team is utilized more so that if a temp contract opens up in the Cape or in the NECBL, and I have a dude that is dominating all summer long and his metrics look good and he's putting up the numbers, then they can go jump from my league as the beginning of their resume to then hopping into a program into the NECBL or into the CPL or those different higher level leagues, right? But you can't get there without playing. You can't get there without playing summer ball. So you have the route of going and playing summer ball, and then there's also the route of going to the lab. Now, certain guys aren't ready to go play summer ball, and that's fine. That's the guy that should be going to the lab, getting their work in, because you also don't want to go to a summer ball team if you're not prepared and do bad, because then you're not going to get the opportunity again.
Right.
Which is the other side of it too, that I don't think everyone really fully understands, right? Like people all the time are emailing, texting, calling Coach Chev or Coach Delro or Coach Smythe about getting into the Cape, and these players aren't actually ready for it. Let's say if they did take them into the Cape and they didn't do well, they might have just ruined their chances too.
Correct.
Like, there's two sides to that part too. So that's the guy that might be better off going into the lab or playing in a summer ball league that is a little bit more competitive for them. But ultimately,
I want you to talk about the lab. So lab meaning strength.
So I mean, when I say the lab, I mean like getting into more of like the private sector of baseball right now, like getting into the training side of things, getting into a facility where you can work out. If I'm a guy and, let's say I'm a right-handed pitcher and I'm 86 to 88, but I'm really crafty and I get a lot of outs, I probably would be better off in a lab still. And here's why, is because that metric of 86 to 88, yes, it does get a lot of outs, but that metric isn't going to light up the gun to get you the interest that you want if you do go to the Cape, right? Like the guys up in the Cape, it's constant 93 to 95, 93 to 95, if not more, right? So I think, if you're a guy who needs to increase a little bit of velocity to be seen more, that's the guy that probably would do better in the lab in a controlled setting, working on a velo program, right? Now, if you're already matching those metrics, I wouldn't go to the lab then. If you're hitting the top metrics and you're really, really competing and your velo's up and you have good secondary stuff and you're getting the outs and all of that, that's a guy that is ready to go play in a big time summer league, right? So those types of guys, they're a little bit different. But right now I'm seeing guys like that are going into the lab, and I just don't understand it, because you can't get drafted if you're not playing in a game.
Right. Right.
So that's something else too of why I started bringing that up, is you can only do so much in the lab. At some point you have to be able to show that you can get the outs, that you can get, the numbers that are needed to no one's made it to the MLB by being in a lab.
Correct.
If
right.
that was the case, they would erase the entire minor league system, and they'll never do that, right? Like, so
the big thing that parents want to know is, so they hear you talking and they say, okay, well, if Keystone is only grabbing JUCO transfers, why do I want to reach out to a Division III? So how do you want parents and student athletes that may be in high school, or they're in that junior or senior year in high school, and they do have some ability, and they really want to play at a program like Keystone and be with that type of a coaching staff that you have? How do you want to be contacted?
So there's a couple different ways that players contact us. We're obviously very big on Twitter. We have a huge Twitter presence, and we do a lot of communication through that. Our information is listed on our website too.
Yep.
So email is typically the best way if you were going to go that route. Sometimes I will meet someone out on the road, and if I exchange numbers with them, then we will talk there too. But I think the best way to reach out would either be going through Twitter. For us, would be going through Twitter, or would be going through an email. Now, with the high school guys that are coming to us, because there are some guys that, are freshmen that will come in and play. Like last year, we had a kid, Justin Mann, who was player of the year, or rookie of the year. Sorry, he was rookie of the year. He was a freshman that could come in, compete right away. Those are the freshmen that we are interested in. And he had other Division II offers out there, but he chose to come to us because he wanted an opportunity to play right away. So I think being able to self-evaluate the program, player by player, program by program, I think that's important. I tell people all the time, if you have never been to a Division III game, you should go see two regional powerhouses play.
Absolutely.
Like if you came, one of the big matchups that we have yearly is against Misericordia. They're about 30 minutes away from us. They were in a World Series last year. Yep. If you want to see real Division III baseball, come watch us play Misericordia, right? Like that's going to be a game that you're going to be able to self-evaluate where you compare, right? But not every program at the D3 level is like us, or like a Miz, or like a Salisbury. Not every program is like that. I'm a firm believer too that there is a home for every single person that wants to play at the college level,
that puts in the work to be a college level student athlete. It is not an extension of high school baseball. And I don't say that in a negative way. I say that because college baseball, for the most part, at any level in division, is a committed, student athlete that is putting in the time for skill set development, physical development, and game IQ development, because college baseball is, as you alluded to earlier, played by men, coached by men, officiated by men. This is a big boy sport. And the only thing that separates a Division I school from a Keystone or a Division III program is depth on the mound.
Yeah, 100%.
That's really it. I mean, D1 can roll out 15 guys, so in 90 plus, whereas a D3 may have 2 or 3 or 4 of those guys, and then it begins to get into that 86, 89 window with some crafty lefties. So we're going to put all of Keystone's contact information, their Twitter, which they're really a big presence on Twitter. They look for dogs, by the way. They want somebody with a strong physical presence and desire to excel. That's what Keystone's all about. And the biggest thing is we're going to put all their Twitter handles, everything that you would need as a family or a student athlete to reach out and contact not only Coach McGarvey, but the entire staff. Do you have camps, Johnny, that they can go to?
Yeah, so we'll typically run one prospect camp. It's typically in the fall. So this past year it was October. So it'll normally be around that time frame. We are looking to increase our camps, get a couple team camps put together for next year, things like that too. But the big thing of what we do a lot of our recruiting, where we do a lot of our recruiting is we do go on the road a lot. Like I can tell you for a fact, for me, I go out all the time. Almost every single weekend I'm out at an event, and then I'm going out to midweek events. And I think the camps are important. And then from a recommendation too, I think you get to learn a lot about coaching staffs through camps, right? Like you can go there. Most camps are going to have players working it. So you're going to be able to see the player to coach relationship. Like with us, you're going to see that we have a human element behind our coaching. Like we are very personable with our players. So you're going to see that out at a camp with us, which for some people, that's what they need. We're not the drill sergeant type of coaches. We're trying to build the relationship with the player to get the best out of the player. So you'll see that at a camp, but you'll also see a little bit about the structure. You'll see different facilities when you get on campus. So I think camps are always a great way to help yourself stand out. I mean, one of the few freshmen that we are recruiting right now for next year, high school seniors to be freshmen, he came to our camp and that he did very well at our camp. And that's why we started moving forward in the recruiting process with him. So I do think camps are good. And we typically will do one in the fall, and we're looking to add some team camps in this coming year too.
Well, Johnny, I want to say thank you for spending some time with me today. And it's really important, I think, for parents to get a good perspective on all of college baseball. And I can personally attest as a coach, Keystone is one of those schools that if you take the time and you have the ability to go watch them play, they play the game the right way. They're extremely well coached. They're a disciplined team that plays the game at a very high energy level. They play the game the right way every single day, and that's a true testament to the staff. Johnny, thank you so very, very much. Have a great holiday season. Anything that we can do for you at any time, please reach out to Coach Serrano and myself. We will make sure we have all of the information down in the section below. Make sure as a parent, if you have questions that you would like me to forward to Coach McGarvey, please go ahead and send those to me, whether it's via DM or here in the comment section. And join us next week. We will make sure we're having Eric Cressy is going to be joining Tyler and I, and we're going to be discussing youth, strength, exercise programs, when to begin, what ages, and so forth, and how remote strength training can benefit a student athlete as well. Johnny, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Walter. I really enjoyed it. I love it. Thank you.
All right, Captain. Thank you.